Hi, it's a new day and it's time for another Leela Chess Zero video. Sorry, I haven't done any for a few days. I'm back at work now and having to do lots of things like that and try and sleep a little bit as well. So here we go. LC Zero, just a quick update on the progress. We had a big jump around 2 million games. You can see a big jump. I don't think you can see my mouse on these videos. It's a bit annoying, but I'm pointing at things. Around 2.2 million games accumulated on this graph. There's a big jump in ELO. Haven't made much progress since then, but one of the things with this project is you have to sometimes go down a bit before you can go up. It has to learn new things, and to do that sometimes it gets a bit weaker, but then it gets stronger. There are also some little bugs that the developers have found. There are all kinds of explanations. And because this is so drawn out as a process compared to what Google did with Alpha Zero, there's all the time for doubt and wondering, are we doing the right thing? Should we be allowing this, or should we be doing this? Should we be making the net bigger? Should we be doing more generation of games? Should we be doing less generation of games? All kinds of things like that. Wondering, people speculating in the chat channel about it. But really, we just need a bit of patience. So let's have a bit of patience. So I wanted to go through a few more games of Leela Chess Zero to see how she's doing. One thing to quickly point out, because people might actually not know, is that you can play it online. You can play Leela online at play.lczero.org. You can see what the interface is here. It's a fairly simple interface, but it works fine. You can use the enable slow mode just below the king there, the white king, in order to get a better strength version of it. But Leela, you can get a sense for how she plays just there, and you can see there it's playing against LC Zero ID 82, which is the is it the highest yet? It's the second highest yet. There you go. Second highest candidate ID so far. Okay, so let's have a look at these actual games. Back on this Leela study on chess. So this is the first one I found. This was by a chap who's in the, I don't know if it's a chap, it could be a girl. I'm just being horribly biased there. Sparkle of Diego, him or her, whoever it is. And this was a game played on that site, play.lczero, I believe. And it's the London system. Really very ordinary kind of moves here. The bishop comes and challenges the bishop on f4, and of course if it takes and white has to recapture with the e3 pawn, then this pawn's looking a bit rubbish. White's structure's damaged. It's not really a great thing. So Sparkle avoids this, and we get some more fairly ordinary development. And here Leela, who's playing black, pushes with e5 to kind of open up the position and free up this bishop to do a bit more in the game. Takes, and back, and castles. Sparkle puts the knight here, which looks like a nice square, being that it can't be attacked by any other pawns because they're all gone. Attacking this bishop potentially, just a really nice square for the knight. And there's some more development, and this is all quite normal. And now Leela attacks the bishop here again, and what happens quite often in these London setups is that the bishop ends up on g3 and it gets swapped off. Now you might be a bit afraid of this if you've not seen the structure before. You might be a bit afraid of this as white and think this is kind of a dodgy pawn setup in front of your king, and you might get attacked quite nastily. Well, it's not normally very true, because lots of important squares here in front of the king are being defended. It's just this one here that can be got to a little bit easier in some situations. And that's not going to happen with a rook and a queen coming out over here anytime soon. There's not really much to be worried about here. But I think it does actually, I think possibly, I'm maybe reading a bit into Sparkle's mind here, but I think it might have just been an issue. So Leela puts the knight in the middle, and now Sparkle puts the queen on b3, putting pressure on this pawn, which I think is probably the right idea for white. I'm not an expert in these kind of positions at all, but you've got a nice knight here, and you've got a little bit of pressure coming on here with the queen and the knight. You get a rook involved, and you get a bishop involved. This pawn can't be defended by any of black's other pawns, and so that will cause black a few problems, potentially. It's well defended at the moment, but it will tie down black's pieces if you can put that pressure on there. Queen e7, rook e1, lining up with the queen makes some sense. And this is probably the first place where I think white goes wrong. This attack on the queen kind of looks nice-ish, but doesn't seem to be achieving that much. Just shifting across. Now the queen has to come back to defend the knight, which has moved from a really nice spot. I'm not sure it really achieved much. And now it gets kicked away anyway. I suppose, yeah, so now the queen's come back here, it's got more pressure on here. Yeah, good. So let's just see. Knight takes. What happens? Check. Move. Oh, I've not got this one. Yeah, a bit of counter pressure, but this knight is in trouble here because it can only come back to these squares, which are controlled quite nicely by black. There may be some tactical ways out of it, but it doesn't really doesn't look like it works according to Stockfish. Okay, I've got to be quicker about this. So this is where I think things really go wrong for white. F3 leaves this pawn a little bit weak. Moving pawns in front of your king, often not a good idea, and I think particularly because of the reason. Well, I don't know why Sparkle played this. Maybe was going for was trying to support e4, which is an idea in some of these London type systems, but it doesn't seem right with the weakness around the king, and particularly given what white does with the king later. I'm not sure. Queen e7, putting a bit more pressure on that pawn now, that's it's a bit weak. Bishop f1, queen in here. And I feel with all of these last quite a lot of moves for white, there's kind of this queen's now back here, this knight's back here. What's white really achieved? Bishop back here. I mean, it's not doing a lot there. Pawns in front of the king, and then here it comes the big blunder, which is king f2. Now I'm wondering if this was the whole purpose for all this maneuver. Was this the idea behind f3 in the first place? I'm not really sure, but it's a bad move. As you can see, Stockfish says -4.3, and there's a reason. And thankfully, and this is the improvement Leela has made in this particular example with 2,000 playouts. Leela spots the tactic: knight in to g4, check. And if you take it, which is what happened in the game, then the knight comes in with check, and this king is now genuinely weak because there are always, well, that square is not defended. You've got this open file as well as this open file. What happens? King up, also a bad decision because it allows Leela to go queen f6 and with check, and yeah, Stockfish wants to run away with the king, but instead Sparkle is not scared, tries to take the knight, but falls for a mate in 3, which is nicely done by Leela. So Leela spotting a tactic there. Leela's weakness as an engine is tactics, certainly versus other engines, because of the nature of the program. Leela gets positional ideas really well, probably better than a human, but just falls for some tricks sometimes, which is why she is lower elo than other engines, basically. So an interesting game, a really kind of solid and ordinary opening from both sides, and then white just kind of, I think, didn't really know what to do, and made some improvements which weren't improvements, and then fell for a bad tactic in the end. But it was good to see Leela winning via a tactic. Next game I wanted to show you was another user who's in the chat for Leela, and this was a really nice attack played again against Leela online. Now I don't know the opening theory of this, and this player is much better than me, so I'm just I'm showing you this to just show you show you a cool game, not because I've got some great analysis skills or because I'll be adding anything to Edmunder's. Sorry, it's Erdmunder. I think I misspelled his or her name. I think that's Erdmunder. Apologies for that. But we went to this kind of big pawn setup, G4, going right away for a quick attack on the king side. And H4. I mean, it's a beautiful looking position. Stockfish doesn't think much of it, nor does the opening explorer on Leela Chess. But you'll see what happens. Open lines, sacrificial game for Erdmunder. Going for open lines, going for development, attack on the king side, opposite side castling. And you can see by now Stockfish is really liking Erdmunder's position, presumably thinking that this attack does come to something, whereas Leela isn't so worried at this point, it seems. Tries to play h6, a bit more weakening, tries to shut down, tries to get some space, and wins a rook, it seems. A little exchange sacrifice. I'm just playing through this because it's cool. Look at that knight there on d5. Comes into play later. And White's pieces get nice and active. Here, there's nothing really happening for Black on the queen side. It's just about whether White can pull off an attack on the king side. Queen comes over, h5, opening up another line. And yeah, Erdmunder doesn't go for what Stockfish likes here. Let's just see what Stockfish is saying. It's saying you can't even capture back here. Give up on that piece altogether. So what happens? Immediate knight in. King somewhere. Not even bothering to take the rook. Not even bothering to take the rook. But bishop in. Setting up discovered. Attacks on the king. All kinds of things. Plus 10.4. This doesn't look like a nice position to defend. In fact, queen sack is what Stockfish calls for. Anyway, Erdmunder played knight g6, which is still very good. Same idea, just a bit different order. And now both knights come in. Look at those knights all over Black's position. Then takes the piece and gets exactly the same idea in. And look, nice skill here from Erdmunder. Could have done the easy move, winning the queen, which I certainly would have played just because I wouldn't have bothered calculating everything and because I'm not as good as Erdmunder. And I didn't spot that there was going to be this lovely forced mate for White. So really lovely attacking play from Erdmunder, and I hope you like the game. You can have a look at it in more detail if you go to the study, which I'll hopefully try and put in the description of this video, but if I forget, then it's down there. If you can zoom in, Leela Chess. I'm not even going to read it out; it's impossible. Okay, and finally, one more game. This was played by another user on the Discord channel that you can get to through the Leela Chess Zero website. This wasn't, in this case, Leela playing against a human, but it was against another engine, but an engine called Ziggurat X64, which apparently, according to what he sent me, is about 1800 ELO. So not the strongest engine by any means, but Leela playing at full strength against another engine playing at full strength. And it's interesting to see what Leela does in this opening. Well, not in this opening, in this game. So we get this slightly offbeat opening. You might immediately be thinking here, but what if? So Black's got pressure on this pawn here. Two attackers, two defenders, but this bishop is now threatening to take this knight, it seems. and then this pawn might not be defended. But what happens if you try and do that in this position? Now let's just have a look if that's okay. So bishop takes f3, bishop takes, attacking the queen. So if you want to make this tactic work, then queen takes d4, and then you've got bishop takes knight, and this queen is undefended, and it's check, which is why you got to do that. Say black castles, and then knight c3, attacking the queen. Computer really wants to go to queen a5, and but the weaker engine, plays back to d6, and Leela starts pushing pawns, opening up lines. In fact, Ziggurat goes to b4 with the sorry, I just had a phone call there, with the knight, attacking d5, putting pressure on it. White doesn't matter. Leela doesn't mind. Castles. Knight takes, queen takes, rook takes. Now, actually, Stockfish now thinks that Leela's not doing very well. In fact, Ziggurat has an extra pawn here, which is probably what's leading to that evaluation. But it's maybe changed its mind. Point two. You'll find that the white pieces can come out really fast here and make some annoying threats, and black never really does what black needs to do. Bishop e3 attacking the pawn on a7, a5, slightly weird move, but there we go. Attacking the bishop, that's a bit of a weird development move, rook a1, but never mind. And here's where Leela starts opening up more lines, pushing this pawn forward towards the black king, which is looking a bit lonely. Notice black's minor pieces and this rook nowhere near being developed. Bishop comes in to annoy the rook. Rook moves. Bishop annoys the rook again. And notice here, two strong bishops in the centre, controlling lots of squares, controlling lots of pieces, lots of kind of defending pawns, stopping black's rook getting anywhere useful. This pawn's under attack, so this bishop can't do too much. So, useful bishops. And now, again, c6, more pressure on the black king, and takes is the option. Black goes for, and so now a really obviously weak king with not many pawns around it, lots of squares to be manipulated around the black king there. Rook takes a2, which is a very dodgy move. Stockfish already says +7 because there's an attack coming which black can't really do much about. Rook a1, the right move, and again black gobbling up pawns. Nice idea. Well, not really, because that's opening up another line of attack for the white rooks. The bishop's controlling the square right now, but it's just more weaknesses. Rook takes, and this is forced here, or roughly forced, because as you can see, there's this back rank threat of mate for this rook, with the bishop controlling these two squares in front of the king. So rook back, and now the knight comes in. And finally black develops a knight. This bishop's still looking horrible here, can't get out, but at least a knight's now out. Bishop a7 coming attacking the rook, which has to move. Bishop comes back to attack the rook again, and the rook comes back because of the threat again on a8. And the rook now comes across. I think this is an idea Stockfish had earlier, but basically to put more pressure on this rook and then bring the other rook in, and there'd be no defenders for the black king. Bishop e4, activating the bishop a bit more, defending via this. A few of these squares helps a bit. Rook comes across, and now the slightly odd looking rook g8. Again, still the bishop's not doing anything up there for black, which is a huge issue in the game, because originally white was black was material up in that pawn, but black's pieces never got going. That's because of black's decisions, really, rather than the objective position. But it shows the weakness of ziggurat as an engine. So here we go, rook a6. I've not got much time to finish this video now, so we're going to go really quickly, and some fairly tame moves. And it kind of actually what happens in the game is that all this initiative was lost a little bit by Leela as she failed to take tactical advantage of what was given to her, but still got a good strong position. And eventually we have, I'm just going to skip really quickly through this. White gobbles up these pawns on the king side, pushes these white pawns, and gets to this point. 3 passed pawns connected on the king side versus 1 on the queen side. White decides to try and make sure that pawn doesn't go anywhere. Feels like it needs to try and gobble up this pawn or defend that. It's quite interesting, but eventually realizes I can just get on with this and push these pawns, and there's no stopping white from queening on the next move and then queening the other pawns, and a devastating material advantage. So a few games from LC Zero, Leela Zero. You're seeing Leela playing human-like chess rather than the standard kind of machine stuff. The errors that Leela makes are kind of understandable errors in a sense, occasionally missing a tactic or two, like a human would, yet still playing some really quite strong chess at times. So 3 games, 2 against humans, 1 against a computer, but showing you what Leela's like at the moment. Come over to lczero.org, get involved, run the client, and if you even if you can't do that, then you can go on here, play.lczero.org, and have a game against Leela yourself. Hope you enjoyed. Like, subscribe, comment if you want me to make more videos, otherwise I probably won't, because I've got lots of other things to do in life, like I've got to go and do now. Bye.